marketplace, and just over 50% of those sales were homes that had been foreclosed upon during the 12-month period.
And how about the foreclosed homes? Are there brokers scrambling to look for deals so that they can buy them and then turn them over? Is there a lot of that going on, like speculation for money, to make money off of this? I mean, I hate to say it, but there is somewhat of a kind of buzzard climate that comes in a time like this where you would imagine people that want to make money would circle and try to grab up quality housing.
You're starting to see that. I know I have a client that in the high desert, sort of the Victorville area, they're going and buying 20 homes at once with the hope of renting them out. And what concerns me is, like, how big is that renter pool? What is the cash flow? What kind of rents? Because rents are starting to come down a little bit too in certain areas. I know in the low desert they come down about 20%. They've come down a little bit in the San Fernando Valley. I live in the Sherman Oaks area, and they've come down a little bit. So there is some softening. So I think people, if they're going to rush in and try to do that, short-term investment, they need to really look at it as a cash flow scenario. So we're starting to see some of that, not on the level we did before. It's people who are coming in with a lot of cash,
right,
as well.
With the government coming in and bailing out, I mean, there's a lot of pressure to have the government come in and try to save, people from losing their homes.
Right.
And it's awful to see people lose their homes. At the same time, so many people are renters. Isn't there some good that could come out of just letting the market go to where it would be reasonable for more people to be able to buy real estate?
Well, it kind of already is. I mean, that's why we've seen the huge declines. I think what the government's trying to do is make it more orderly, not have panic selling and buying like you might have in the stock market. So maybe what should be a 35 or 40% drop, 50% in some areas, doesn't go to 70 or 80 and then take another, X number of years to come back up again. So I think that's what they're trying to do. There's not a lot the government can do to try to really preclude overall market forces from having their say. They will eventually.
Right. You do a lot of consulting on commercial development, commercial real estate. It's in trouble too, right?
It's starting to get in trouble, and that's mostly because of, it's not so much because investors of commercial properties or developers overreached. They don't tend to be as emotionally invested. The terms on the mortgages are shorter. There's more cash and equity involved. So this is more due to the economic climate, especially on the retail end. We're having some retailers that we've seen for years going out of business, some favorite, brands. And so that's starting to impact shopping centers, and then that in turn is making investors and lenders a little skittish to lend. So
in LA, we're a big market for that, right? Commercial real estate and development, one of the biggest markets in the world.
Huge office market, big retail market, yeah, substantial industrial market related to the ports.
Is there a lot of debt? Is there a problem with debt? Or would we see some skyscraper groups go bankrupt because of the debt problems?
It would depend. Well, I think there's been some concern. I know in LA there's been some changing of some office properties because the market had changed, and it set their assumptions about the market change. They thought, well, if the economy grows and rents go to this level, I can pay my debt, and then the economy changed on them. So it depends how long they've owned the property. It depends sort of like their own underwriting standards. So I think you're going to see some of that. It's a little early to see whether it's going to be sort of an overall trend. It's just in the beginning stages, I think.
The poor. There's a lot of substandard housing in Los Angeles,
right,
especially along the Figueroa corridor, and a lack of housing. I mean, there's a tremendous need for better housing and better standard of housings. What's it going to take in the real estate? You saw all this big growth in real estate, but it still remained a huge problem, the development in the poverty areas of Los Angeles. What's it going to take to change that?
I think government's going to have to step in with a different role. I think the problem so much isn't affordable housing, it's that there's lack of market rate housing. And when there's lack of market rate housing, prices for all types of housing rise. So people who are looking for affordable market rate housing crowded out the people that could only afford, 30 or 50% of the median rent. And so that's had a huge effect. You have NIMBYism. You have a lot of people who live in communities that don't want to see higher density. You have people who sit on community groups that don't even want to discuss new projects coming into their areas. So,
well, there is a big push in South LA, and a lot of the poverty providers are standing together to demand change. So hopefully we'll see that happen.
Right.
Tell me about Patrick Duffy. Did you know when you were 5 years old that you wanted to be a real estate guy? What got you into the business?
Well, I knew I couldn't be an actor because that name was already taken, so you get that a lot. I fell into it. When I went to University of California, San Diego, and I was an economics major, and the electives I took were in housing, and they were really interesting in applying economic theory to something that I could walk through, that I understood. We all have to live somewhere. So I started with a consulting firm more or less right out of college, and learned a lot under a gentleman I worked with, and worked for a home builder, worked for a developer, worked for a company that it was national in scope, and now work with a variety of different companies, a bunch of strategic alliances, and so every day's different.
And how about your family life growing up? Was this something where, and now with your family, do they go, oh, Patrick's in real estate? Is there a great deal of pride in the fact that you're a real estate consultant?
I would say in a way, because I am a California native. We were talking earlier in the green room, 7th generation, and I'm really proud of that. And growing up, my parents, to send us to college, would buy rental properties, hold in and fix them up, or pull out equity.
So there was a little real estate there in the background.
Scraping and painting.
A little bit of the DNA?
Yeah, there were a lot of weekends scraping and painting, and I prefer to hire it out. Not that good at it, but yeah, I certainly saw the importance of cash flow and long-term holding. My parents never flipped anything. They still own everything I think they bought before, so very conservative investing philosophy.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this time with us and telling us a little bit about LA real estate. We look forward to having you back again in the future.
I would like that very much.
Best of luck to you, Patrick.
Thank you. You too.
I'm Sharon Jimenez for LA Business Today.
So if you're like most Los Angelinos and you still can't buy property, you can still enjoy the city's great nightlife, which is working hard to earn your dollar.
And though the federal government is not likely to be helping our personal bottom lines, it doesn't appear that the really big industries like real estate and banking will have to go it alone. Bailout is the new hot word at the end of 2008 and the beginning of 2009.
For sure, economic rescue for property owners and banks. What's in it for the average Joe renter after the nightlife is over?
I guess Joe and Josephine, we need a feminine for Joe now that we've identified the name of the average American, can hope for a secure job. Maybe, if the bailouts work. I'm Sharon Jimenez.
And I'm Bob Jimenez. LA Business Today will continue to explore the economic possibilities for all of us. Thanks for being with us.
It's that time of year again to clear all that annoying dry brush from around your house. In the event of a fire, dry brush is extremely combustible and can explode. By clearing brush 200 feet from your home, you create a barrier, lessening the likelihood of spreading a fire. I'll still be here when you get back! Get the message. Be prepared.
LA City View Channel 35. Your city, your channel.
Good morning. We're going to start the special meeting of the Ad Hoc Committee on Economic Recovery and Investment. We have a quorum, Mr. Alicon and Mr. Wesson and myself, Jan Perry, will be here momentarily. Why don't we start with item 1.
Director of Federal Relations in the Mayor's Office. I want to start by first mentioning that on March 31st will mark the end of the quarter, and we'll be doing the Office of Management and Budget reporting requirements under ARA. This is the third quarterly report that we'll be doing. Bill will talk a little bit about what they've been doing as far as training on this, but we don't anticipate any particular problems in this, and we've worked out a pretty good system for this to happen. The grant that you're going to be looking at today is called Building Bridges to Success. This is a state grant. It's a grant that is a collaborative grant with the local workforce investment boards working in collaboration with educational institutions and employers. And this is just one example of many that we've done where we are actually reaching out to work in collaboration with other agencies to try and bring as many ARA dollars as we can into the city of Los Angeles. Along that line, several weeks ago, we had a presentation from DWP on the weatherization program. The negotiations with the California Department of Consumer Services and Development is moving along quite smoothly. There's only 2 items left that need to be done. One is to hold a public hearing on April 29th, which will probably occur here in Los Angeles by the department, and the other is that we will need a council resolution basically indicating its willingness to accept these funds. I guess the question I have for you is, would you like that draft resolution to come through this committee, or would you rather it just go directly to the council and be scheduled for the council?
Now, is the issues that we're doing the resolution on have gone through the committee before?
Well, the committee has reviewed the program that was presented to it by DWP as far as how it would work, and this is just a certification, basically, that the city will be willing to accept these funds.
Why don't we try this? Why don't we put it through this committee and get a placeholder, if we can, for that day, for that Friday's calendar?
Yes, sir.
So we can deal with it that morning in the committee, and then have it at 10 o'clock for the council.
Very good. Thank you. And what they anticipate then is that once the public hearing is held on April 29th, that the contract for this will be given to us on the next day, on April 30th. And it's a $9.2 million contract for weatherization programs. Earlier, actually last year, the city was awarded $12.9 million in ARA Workforce Investment Act formula funding for a program called Dislocated Workers. Included in that was $1.4 million for what program called Rapid Response. This is situations where a plant closes or there's a serious layoff, and what they do is they send out a rapid response team to work with employees there to let them be aware of what sort of benefits are available, what sort of training is available. The state had also been holding on to a lot of this money for rapid response. They were planning to distribute it both by a formula and competitive process, but they realized that they need to get the money out quickly, so they've decided to have all of the money go into a formula. And so Los Angeles was notified that it is receiving an additional $2.6 million into this rapid response fund, which will bring the total to $4 million. The good news about this is that the additional money will allow us to hire 13 individuals, and they've already made arrangements to hire 10 individuals using people who have been laid off out of our human services and neighborhood empowerment program. And I think the CDD will be coming back asking for additional authorization for 3 positions. But this is an example along the lines of what Mr. Alicon is asking us to do, is looking for ways in which we can use ARA dollars to basically retain employees from being laid off. The next thing I wanted to mention is that through New York City, we formed what's called basically the Big Cities Network of the large municipalities to exchange information about what's going on, what problems we're having, particularly with the reporting requirements that OMB is providing to us, and other problems that we're experiencing. There's going to be a one-day sort of conference of the Big City Network folks on April 14th in Washington, D.C., where they will also be meeting with the Recovery Act Accountability and Transparency Board, otherwise
affectionately known as the RAT Board, and also with senior people from OMB. I would like to recommend that this committee ask the CAO to send someone from the CAO's office that's been involved with ARA to attend this conference in Washington, D.C. on April 14th. I think it would be valuable for us to
Have you talked to Mr. Santana?
We will do
Because
that.
I don't think there's going to be a disagreement, because that would be where we get our direct voice into that discussion.
Okay, yes, sir. The last thing I wanted to talk about was some legislation of interest that would be this committee. The first is H.R. 4849, the Small Business and Infrastructure Jobs Tax Act, which passed the House on Wednesday. It added a one-year extension and an additional $2.5 billion of funding to the TANF Emergency Contingency Fund, which you had brought to the attention of this committee and asked for a resolution of support for. The second one is also passed on Wednesday. It's H.R.
Just for the public, could you just repeat those numbers and what it entails?
Yes, it's H.R. 4849, and it provided a one-year extension and an additional funding of $2.5 billion to the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families Emergency Contingency Fund. And this is to provide additional funding at an 80% level, particularly to states that are hard hit as a result of the economic recession. So this is money, though, it'll go to the states and come down to the county. And while it doesn't come to us directly, it will impact people in the city and the county who receive TANF.
Yeah. And I think we all owe Senator Boxer a debt of gratitude, because she's the one that initiated that, and certainly our resolution supported it. But I think without her bringing it to our attention, it may not have gone as quickly. But we are appreciative, because our residents will get a great benefit of that.
We'll prepare a letter to that. The next I wanted to mention was H.R. 4899, the Disaster Relief and Summer Jobs Act, which passed the House on Wednesday. It adds $600 million for summer youth employment for this summer, if it gets passed, and it'll be over in the Senate. So we need to be lobbying on that and make sure that happens as well. But $600 million for summer youth jobs is great to be able to
Is that
have.
something that the council should take?
Yes, sir. On all these, I'm going to make a recommendation on it. And the last one...
What was the previous allocation? I thought it was $900 million.
I'll have to get back to you, sir.
Do you know?
I don't.
No, this...
Come up to the...
Okay. So $600 million represents half of the allocation in the previous year, so we're likely to see our program halved, or?
Why don't you state your name and...
Lisa Salazar, Community Development Department. So last year's summer youth allocation from the feds was $1.2 billion. This year, right now, they have $600 million on the table. So it is half.
Okay, so that's obviously going to affect our program downward, or
I believe that this money is emergency money over and above what the normal allocation will be for the summer youth program.
Is it?
Well, there is no there is no regular allocation of federal money for summer jobs. Last year was a one-time allocation.
So the $600 million is it? That's what I'm hearing,
Well,
Jim. I'm not questioning you. It's just that when I was in Washington, I heard it was going to be reduced. So $600 million was less than what we got last year. So our summer youth, I don't want to send a message that we're increasing our summer youth employment program when it's actually probably going to decrease.
Well, we're also in support of Patty Murray's bill, which is the ongoing year-round summer, continual funding of that, which is moving forward as well, too.
Okay. Thank you.
If we can get that clarified for
Yes,
the
sir.
next meeting.
The last one I wanted to mention is H.R. 4812 by George Miller, Chair of Education and Labor, and this one particularly addresses itself directly to the concerns that Mr. Alarcon has. This bill provides $75 billion, $37.5 billion a year for 2 years. It uses... What it does is it provides 70% of the money would go to direct entitlements to cities over 50,000 population. 30% goes to states. It's based on a formula basis like CDBG, but it uses 3 factors. It uses high unemployment, poverty and population. So the City of Los Angeles should do very well under this formula, and we hope to hear in the next day or two exactly how much money that would amount to. 50%, it can use up to 50% of the money of funds to retain employees who would otherwise be laid off due to budget shortfalls. 25% may be given to local nonprofits to help provide needed services, and 25% can be used for hiring new city employees or rehiring laid-off employees. There's no local match requirement, and in addition to that, the bill also provides support for education jobs, $23 billion, law enforcement officers, $1.18 billion, and firefighters, $500 million. So this is something we definitely want to get behind, and I hope that the council would adopt a resolution that we can get the support on this and get behind it, because this will really do a lot for us to be able to retain our city employees.
And what was the specific name of the legislation?
It's called it's by George Miller, H.R. 4812, entitled Local Jobs for America Act. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, we'll go to 1A.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Alarcon. Bill Kreitz with the CAO's office. I'd like to give you a brief overview of the ARA project management. First of all, April 10th will be the third quarterly reporting for the Office of Management and Budget. So the city is poised to meet our requirement where we are a prime recipient of ARA funds to report for all those projects that have been awarded funds. And we have met with departments with training. We're providing a letter to the ARA-funded departments today, and then we'll be following up with that to ensure that we have 100% reporting as we have the last two quarters. Possibly, even though the OMB reporting deadline is Saturday, April 10th, the city is backed up to Wednesday, April 7th to have all the city departments report. So it's possible that by Friday, April 9th, at the meeting of this committee, we might be able to give you a preview of how the reporting has gone. With respect to recent awards, there have been no ARA awards since this committee met last week. By the same token, there have been no denials of grant applications since this committee met last Friday. And with respect to report backs, Councilmember Garcetti had requested a report back from this office on how many general fund finance jobs that were slated for layoff have been preserved using the ARA funds. To date, that total is 133 previously general fund finance positions are currently funded by ARA. Mr. Parks had requested a report back from the CAO on the status of proprietary departments accepting general fund finance employees slated for layoff into positions that are ARA funded. To date, no proprietary departments have accepted general fund finance employees slated for layoff into ARA-funded positions, and that could change in the future, especially with DWP. With respect to the dashboards, Mr. Garcetti always reminds me to mention this so that anyone listening will go to recovery.lacity.org to look at our dashboards and our reports that are part of your packages today. We have posted all the dashboards and all of the table indicating awards and jobs to the LA Recovery websites as of last night, so people looking at the internet can look at that information. We have one application by CDD, the Northeast San Fernando Valley Bridges to Success Program, which is item 1A today on your agenda. That was submitted on Wednesday and met the federal deadline for submission, and they will be talking about that in a few minutes. We're now at 153 grant applications that we've submitted as of March 25th for a total of $1.5 billion had we been awarded all those funds, and we have not. We've gotten 84 grant awards for approximately $592 million, and we don't have any grant applications due in the next week. So that would conclude my presentation, and CDD is here to speak to item 1A if that is your decision.
Any questions on the overview? Okay, we go to 1A.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Lisa Salazar with the Community Development Department, here with Marcus Costain of the Infrastructure Academy. Wanted to just provide you a brief overview of the Bridges to Success proposal that was submitted this past Wednesday. So, Marcus, we'll start with an overview of the program design.
Good morning. My name is Marcus Costain, and I'm the CEO of the Infrastructure Academy. We're pleased to partner with the city, specifically with the Workforce Investment Board and the Community Development Department, to submit this grant, the Northeast San Fernando Valley Bridges to Success grant. This is WIA funding that has been tweaked to include a academic science, technology, engineering, and math academic component. It will begin this summer, and will focus on 100 at-risk, highly at-risk youth in the Northeast San Fernando Valley, primarily CDs 6 and 7. It'll consist of paid employment this summer in 2010, where Generation Power, which is a nonprofit social enterprise of the Infrastructure Academy, my organization, will employ teams of young people, divide them out, similar in some ways to a Conservation Corps model, where they'll work in tree planting, water conservation, restoration of parks, school garden projects. In addition, they'll work for 6 weeks. One change is that they'll do 120 hours of work, recognizing the high temperature of the valley in July and August, when much of this work will be done. We'll start out early in the morning. It'll be 6 weeks of employment. They will also do academic workshops around sustainability and green jobs, workforce readiness training component, and then when we return to the academic year, our goal is to return many of these young people to school, because many of them will be out-of-school youth. We'll provide supportive services and case management, as well as creating milestones with stipends so that they can continue to achieve their goals. And for us, that's keeping them in school and moving them to high school graduation, or matriculating them into the workforce or into higher education. So that is the program in a nutshell. Most of the work will happen this summer with ongoing academic supports and support services the following academic year, 2010-2011. The entire grant period is 13 months, so we have to complete this work by, I believe it's June 1st, 2011. Any questions?
Yeah, let me just ask, for CDD on the matching funds, is that in-kind, in-place personnel, or is that real dollars, or?
It's a combination of in-kind through salaries and in-kind services of the partner agencies that have signed on.
So it's primarily services and existing personnel?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just ask if we, from the CEO and the mayor's office, and I want to commend you for putting this program together. One thing that I was wondering when I read this is that when this was presented, why the mayor's office GAIN program or grids did not find this type of program something that they should apply for citywide.
Short answer, sir, is I'll look into it and find out for you.
Because I think it's an outstanding program, and I think the fact that they've identified a source and they've identified a program that we hope gets funded, and then also the fact that the city through CDD and other departments are going to basically support it with 50% as it relates to matching. It would appear that we grab his idea and see if it can't be looked at through the grid program and try to create one of those in each grid if the money's available.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What I was going to say is what this does do is it allows us to run kind of a demonstration project with a smaller cohort of young people that eventually could be grown into a citywide project.
So I think the issue is we probably have run so many pilot programs that we kind of have an idea that's what's kind of successful, and one of the things we know is successful is keeping kids employed, keeping them in prevention and intervention, and I don't know how much more you need to model that if we have a basis of where you're educating them, keeping them employed during summer months. That's three big issues of crime prevention.
Well, if I could say, I agree that there might have been an opportunity to apply for monies through this grant process for the grid and other programs, but GRID is not specifically designed for training, and it is a intervention program, and they do not have the $100,000, for example, that the Infrastructure Academy is putting in, because I'm assuming that's a match of existing staff that are trainers. So they don't have the job trainers, and also the local employers component, $225,000, and the local education agencies, they would want to see the training component. Having cut my teeth in job training programs, I'm very familiar with this model, and in fact, I supervised a young summer youth employment project back in the day. But and I support you on the GRID. As you know, I have two of them in the San Fernando Valley. I have two of them in my district, so I would certainly support something like that. But I don't think this particular kind of grant, given the WIA dollars, given the Infrastructure Academy dollars, and the education and local employers dollars, I don't think I'm assuming that the grant requires a job training component. And in other words, so the GRID would have to gear up to do all of that. And
what I'm thinking about is within the GRID there are partners in which that the city is funding in some fashion. So it's a matter of looking and seeing how we can put those pieces together.
Actually, one of my questions might be related. How are you going to get the candidates?
We're working directly with the Alley Unified School District's Dropout and Recovery Office to help us identify students who recently dropped out or didn't check in this last semester.
So are you going to use our Family Source Centers?
Absolutely. We'll be tying them in for additional supportive services.
Okay, and what about the GRID program? Will they... Can they refer people to this program?
Yes, the GRID program will be part of the referral process. We'll be looking to all of our partners to identify students who qualify for this program.
Okay.
I would hope that as we've dealt with, $30 or $40 million over the last couple of years dealing with GRID, that all of those components are in every part of the city. And it's a matter of us pulling them together and maybe getting an agency to apply, just as this agency has. But I would hope that that there's not a part of the city that does not have an interest in dealing with prevention and intervention, training of young people, having a relationship with LA Unified, and all of those things and also having WIB dollars that are being spent in their area. So I would hope that through the mayor's office that we can look at each one of those and see how it might be replicated. It's one thing if the grant doesn't have sufficient money. It's another thing that we just didn't put forth that effort. Any questions on 1A? No. So we'll move 1A and with those directions, and if we can get some feedback on a citywide approach next week, we'd appreciate it. Thank you. There's no questions, there's no cards, and so we're going to adjourn and move item 1A. Oh, sorry, there is one card. I'm sorry. Mr. Sachs, you have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. Arnold Sachs. A couple of points to bring up. And I'm sorry that I didn't get the names of the people that were speaking, but one of the people at the desk mentioned a project that was going to allow for the rehiring of, I believe it was 7 or 12 city workers that have been laid off. So my question would be, since you've, as the council, has made motions to bring before the council positions that can be used to transfer people that were facing layoff, why were the people laid off before they were transferred to these new positions? That would be question number one. Question number two, another gentleman was speaking about a bill and that it would require, it would allocate funding to the city, and part of what he mentioned was it would require no matching funds. So when bills require matching funds, what do the matching funds pay for? Again, I brought up this point before, that you've requested to keep positions funded that are created through grants, but do the grants pay just the salary, or do they include the benefits and the retirement? Because every time you get a grant dollar, you have to match that with a retirement dollar and a benefit dollar. And if you don't have those funds to match those retirement and benefit dollars, then every grant you take is actually costing the city money. And I believe on Wednesday's discussion, President Garcetti mentioned a questioning regarding the media that if the LAWA and
Mr. Sachs, you're going to wrap it up. You've exhausted your
LAWA
2 minutes.
and DWP were taping the broadcast, were the people being reimbursed? Was the city being reimbursed for just the salary or the benefits and the pension?
Thank you very much. This concludes the ad hoc committee, and so council will start at 10 o'clock.
Good morning. This is Friday, another great day in Los Angeles. This is Los Angeles City Council Chambers. John Farrar Chambers. I want to welcome Mr. Zine, as always, one of the leaders here for the council. We're going to start our presentations momentarily. So we're going to salute some folks right now, and I'd like to welcome the great councilman from the 1st District, Mr. Ed Reyes, for the first presentation as we begin our meeting today. Just from a show of hands, how many are the first time ever visiting council chambers today? First time. Special welcome to all you first timers. Thank you. Thank you. We have a presentation by Mr. Ed Reyes of the 1st District.
Where's Stacy? You on here? Are you on here? Okay.
Good morning, Mr. Reyes.
Good morning, Council President, the Honorable Councilor Tom LaBonge, colleagues. There comes a time when we get to recognize critical events that affects this city, this country, indeed our international community. And this is one moment that I'm honored to participate, to recognize someone that has affected and improved the lives of many during some very trying times. The person I'm referring to is Monsignor Romero and his contributions to world peace. I want to thank the organizers for being here today, because they are able to recognize an important contribution that speaks to how we treat each other humanely. Today we have the leadership, the Salvadoran community, and we have the children, the Oscar Romero Charter School. Please stand up. Let's give them a round of applause for joining us today. Thank you. Please sit down. It's important that they understand that when someone gives up their life for something they believe in, when they do it because they believe in the principles of peace and love, that action continues to reverberate throughout the years. Oscar Monsignor Romero quoted, and I quote him, "If they kill me, I will rise again in the Salvadoran people." These were his words. The Salvadorian Central American people in Los Angeles are Romero's own prophecy about his death now fulfilled. 30 years later, and many miles away from their homeland, many Salvadorians and many others who love peace come together to celebrate his legacy. The city of Los Angeles now joins them as they celebrate the fruits of his work and as they renew their commitment to building a more just and discrimination-free society. And the leadership you see around me are folks who have taken his example and have ventured in different causes, struggling for housing, struggling for better health, struggling for better education, struggling for jobs, struggling just to have a neighborhood that's enjoyed by many, but yet in the Salvadoran community, in many pockets of this city, it has yet to be realized. Present with me, I want to thank them for being here, is Delmi Reese from Salif, as well as Carlos Vaquerano, Marvin Andrade, Director of Caresen, Dr. Albert Pacheco, Director of Clínica Romero, Mirma Solorzano, Program Director of Homies Unidos, and of course the students of Monsignor Os Romero Charter School, Principal Vasquez and Douglas Carranza. I also want to recognize Sarah Bernal from my office, who grew up in Pico Union, who comes from a family of leaders and shares in this passion in doing what we need to do to improve the lives not only of Salvadorians and Central Americans, but for everyone, because they contribute in our economy, they contribute in services, and they continue today to work with the city, with the police, and maintaining peace and safety in their neighborhoods. So that being said, I'd like to, Council President, would we like to hear from the council members before we hear from the speakers?
Yes, I think we'd like to hear from the speakers, though, right now.
Okay. Done.
Good morning. My name is Delmi Ruiz, and I am from Salif. I really want to thank you to the council members and the whole the council of the city of Los Angeles for the opportunity to commemorate Monsignor Romero. For us, as a Salvadorians, is a hero, is a mentor, is somebody who really gave us a voice when we didn't have it. Is somebody who was really fight for the human rights in El Salvador, and for those commitment that he had for the people, and especially for the poor. That's why he caused his death. And I really thank you for continue to keep his legacy alive, especially with those children out here behind. That way we can never forget what happened in El Salvador. It cannot happen anywhere, in any place. And I know the city of Los Angeles is really important for us. It's a lot of Salvadorians who live here, and I really appreciate all of you, especially Councilmember Ray, for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good morning, buenos días. I just came back from El Salvador early this morning, about 3 o'clock. And I went not only to know the country of El Salvador, but also to learn more about Oscar Romero. And maybe in some ways I went to find Monsignor Oscar Romero, since I run the clinic that bears his name. My first couple of days there were spent distributing supplies, medical supplies, to the people affected by the recent floods. And even though the peace accords that were signed in the early 90s or some time ago, the people are still struggling to survive any kind of existence. What is the difference between them and us? What does that leave us here in Los Angeles? Not very far. Because those of us that work in each and every day also work with people who struggle each and every day here to get an existence. And just like Monsignor Romero kept faith with his people, we too here in Los Angeles must keep faith with our people, with our pueblo here. And of each and every day, as we do our good works, a little is left over. We must also continue to think about the people of El Salvador and the spirit of Monsignor Romero. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Catherine Amaya. I'm an 8th grader from Monsignor Oscar Romero Shadow Middle School. I'm here today to talk about how I feel about Monsignor Oscar Romero and the importance of going to a school that is named after him. Monsignor Oscar Romero was a great person because he helped many poor people during the Civil War of El Salvador. He was a leader for the community and was not afraid to stand for the poor. It's a shame that he was killed, but we hope that his prayer will always live through our school. An interesting fact about me is that my grandmother knew Monsignor Oscar Romero because they grew up in the same town of El Salvador. He was important for me to go to a school named after Monsignor because it's the only school that is named after him in the United States. And it represents what Monsignor Oscar Romero stood up for. I feel proud to go to Monsignor Oscar Romero